Hey guys, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this epic kingdom environment. Creating realistic landscapes at a massive scale is pretty tricky. I struggled with it for years. It just always seemed like I was missing some sort of secret ingredient, and things that I thought would be simple ended up looking terrible, and I couldn't figure out why. Maybe you're in the same position that I was, and by the end of this video, you're gonna know how to fix that. Where do we start? Well, first, let's go ahead and break down the entire process. First, you're gonna learn how to set up realistic skies, and then we'll build an awesome foreground ecosystem. Next, we'll add the midground terrain and the main mountain. On the terrain, we'll scatter bushes and trees and add in some beautiful cliffs. Of course, we'll also top the mountain with an epic kingdom, utilizing completely free assets. Finally, arguably the most important part, I'm going to show you how to properly light a scene at this scale and add in atmosphere, which is truly the touch of realism. I've divided this video up into convenient chapters, each chapter focusing on understanding all the major techniques. And then by the end, you'll be well on your way to creating your own beautiful landscapes. It's also important to mention that this entire environment, along with nearly every asset, is available for you to download. That means you can break the project file down yourself, follow along while watching this tutorial, and truly master the workflow. If you're interested in downloading the scene, there's a link to my Patreon in the description. All right, let's jump in. To begin, let's start on chapter 1, Sky and Lighting. In any outdoor 3D environment, the sky is easy to overlook. I know I did for a long time. The sky actually carries much more realism than you'd expect, and if you get it right, it'll serve as a great basis for a convincing render. In my opinion, you can get the best looking skies using HDRIs. An HDRI is a high definition panoramic image that stretches 360 degrees around your environment. So no matter what direction your camera points, there will always be sky. And since it's wrapped around the world spherically, it looks more realistic than, say, putting an image of a sky on a plane in the background of your render. So HDRI for the sky, but the problem with HDRIs is you basically have zero flexibility. Let's say you found an HDRI that has great clouds that you want as the background of your render, but the light that is actually emitted from the HDRI is super dull and underexposed. So you'd think, okay, well, let's just turn up the exposure of the HDRI to give more light into the scene. So now there's a decent exposure to your objects, but in the process, you've blown out the actual clouds and the sky itself now looks awful. This issue is why we are going to utilize a custom lighting setup that allows you to separate the HDRI and the sunlight, using the HDRI as a background visual, or what's known as a backplate, and using a Blender sky texture to control the lighting. So here's our little demo scene, a plane with Suzanne. To set things up, let's drag out a new workspace, and under editor type, let's change it to the shader editor. Now switch it from object mode to world. First, let's bring in our environment texture. So hit Shift A, search, and bring in any of your choosing. In this case, I'm using Kloppenheim 06 from Polyhaven. Now on the environment texture, hit Control T to bring in a mapping setup. This will allow you to rotate the HDRI by controlling the Z-axis. This is a great example of an HDRI that has a really nice sky, but super boring lighting. In order to fix this, go ahead and bring in a sky texture and plug it into a background node. Taking a look at the sky texture, you can see it's really extreme. The lighting doesn't look very good, but that's okay. We'll get to that. But first, we need to remove the sky texture's background and replace it with the HDRI sky. In order to set this up, first combine the two background nodes using a mix shader, and then add a light path node and plug its is camera ray output into the mix shader's factor. Now you can see we've retained the lighting of the sky texture, but it's also now utilizing the HDRI as a backplate. So now let's just adjust the sky texture, and this is really important, to match the exposure of the sky and the position of the sun. I have a pretty easy way of doing this, starting first with the exposure. Turn the sun intensity of the sky texture down to 0, and then adjust the background strength to match the exposure of the HDRI. You can hit Control Shift T to just view the HDRI, and then switch it back and forth from the sky texture until you match it up as best as possible. It won't be perfectly similar, but that's totally fine. Now let's enable the sunlight by turning the intensity up. I'd start somewhere around 0.4. First, let's match the sun position. The easiest way I've found to do this is by placing your finger on the screen where the HDRI sun is located, then adjust the sun elevation and rotation of the sky texture until you get it in the same spot as your finger. Now just view both together and you can see we've matched the lighting. This doesn't have to be perfect now because you'll almost certainly adjust these properties down the line when you have more objects in the scene. Okay, with the sky and lighting setup complete, we're moving into chapter 2, foreground foliage. This ecosystem consists of wild fescue, field clover, geranium, maiden steers, poppies, and euonymus shrubs. I found this combination of plants makes for a really nice, dry, flowery field. All of these plants can be found on grass-walled completely for free, except for the euonymus shrubs, which are from shaker trees here on the Blender market. So go ahead and download the plants you like, import them in the Blender, organize them into collections, and we can get started building a realistic field. We're going to use geometry nodes to scatter the plants. So open up a new workspace, change it to geometry nodes, and then add in these according nodes in this setup. You can feel free to pause the video and copy this into your workspace. Once set up, you can drag in your plants and connect them to the instance input. In this case, I'm starting with the wild fescue. I'll turn up the density, and then using this noise texture connected to the scale, you can dial in the distribution and then height via the math node. The noise texture is really cool because it allows you to form these really organic and realistic clumps of plants, just like in real life. Once you finish one of the plants, select all the nodes except for the join geometry, and then hit Ctrl-G to form them into a group. Then name the group the according plant. Now to create more plants, just duplicate the group, hit the little 2 button to separate the group from the previous, and name it to the next plant. Now inside the group, change the instance collection to the new plant, and then use the same controls to develop a new scattering setup. Just make sure to change the seed so that you get a different distribution. Once you complete the foreground foliage, this is a great time to revisit the lighting setup and dial in the sun intensity until it's the right brightness on the plants, but also not too blown out. Once you get the foreground looking great in terms of lighting, you've set a great basis for the rest of the scene. All right, very exciting. Now it's time for chapter 3, mountains and terrain. Here's the midground terrain and with scattering, and here's the mountain with scattering and with cliffs. Let's break it all down now. First of all, we need to generate these meshes, and we can do that in a software called Gaia. This isn't a Gaia tutorial exactly, but I do want to show you the workflow. I'll start with a hill node, scale it in size, dial in the shape with a fractal terracing, fold it to increase interest, erode it, and finish with a stacks to improve rock shape. Now for the texture, I'm mixing grass with rock to get this result, and then a flow node to highlight rock slides and soil. This mountain is done. Now all I need to do is follow a similar workflow for the background mountains. And for the midground terrain, I'll use a super simple setup, just a range node plugged into an erosion, and boom, nice mild hills. Import all of this into Blender, and we are ready to arrange them in the scene. Like I said before, all of the assets in the entire environment are available for you to download on my Patreon. So if you don't own Gaia, that's okay because you can just use my mountains. Okay, so actually setting up these mountains, the important part is that they are a real world scale. We want these mountains to be the same size inside of Blender that they would be in real life. What I did to make sure my mountain was the correct scale is grab my human reference, which is 6 feet tall, and then scaled the mountain up until it seemed to be realistic compared to the human. I'll place the human at the base of some of these giant cliffs and kind of estimate how large they'd be in real life. In the end, I came to a mountain that was roughly a mile wide, which is pretty accurate. Once you nail in the correct size of the mountain, it's as easy as extending it into the distance until it matches your desired perspective from the camera, which in the scene was about a mile away. By the way, for the camera, I'm using a 35mm lens. Now let's insert the midground terrain. This is an even easier task. I'm not really paying attention to the scale very much, just making a large chunk and then duplicating it a few times until it fills in that big gap between the foreground and the mountain. Lastly, the background mountains. I'll just scale them up to be roughly the size as the main mountain or slightly bigger, and then stick them really far in the distance, just barely poking out. This will serve as a great way to convey distance in the scene. Let's go ahead and render what we currently have. Okay. This is the exact moment where past Cov would have been so confused and dismayed at why it just looks terrible, unrealistic in so many ways. Why does it look so bad? Well, it's because it's missing atmosphere. Proper atmosphere is that secret sauce, and we want it to behave just like in real life. I know in the chapter introduction I mentioned scattering and cliffs as well, but it's more important that we add the atmosphere first so that we can properly visualize the next steps. So, chapter 4, atmosphere. Creating atmosphere is one of those weird things where until you get it just right, it doesn't look realistic at all. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get it set up properly. First of all, actually getting started, we want the entire world to be inside of a giant cube. This cube will then have an atmosphere shader on it. So add in a cube, go into wireframe, and make sure it's encompassing everything. And then make the bottom of the cube start at the base of the terrain and the very top of the cube end at the highest mountain. Great. Now let's add that atmosphere shader to it by heading over to the material properties, deleting the principled BSDF, adding a principled volume instead, and plugging it into the volume input. Currently, it's it's crazy dense, basically just a solid block of smoke. First of all, turn the density way down to fix this. I have mine roughly at 0.0002. Also head over to the anisotropy, and I'd recommend setting it to 0.5. Now, a very important part, but also the easiest way to break realism, is the color. We want this to be a dark blue, so that instead of the mountains in the background showing up like this kind of unrealistic smoky look, they are this deep realistic blue. Feel free to play around with the colors, but I'd recommend setting this to somewhere around hex value 2C4162. This is at least what I used for the scene, and it works pretty well. Let's go ahead and render out a test shot, and you can see we've actually established a sense of scale and realism in the scene already. It's not this bland, unlit render like from before. Now we are in a much better position to properly visualize the next steps and improvements to the scene. So we can begin in Chapter 5, Terrain Improvements. Getting a scatter system to look good at this far away is pretty easy, since you can't really make out the details. Basically, our objective is just to cover this mountain completely in foliage, not only to break up the CG look of the terrain, but also so that light reacts correctly to it. I'll add a new geometry node system to the mountain, using the same setup as for the foreground, and then bring in the euonymus shrub. I'm using a pretty high density. I'm also scattering various trees on top like ash, pine, and cypress. Here's the render. Much better than what we had. Next up, we need to establish more heroic cliffs. I'll download a bunch of these cool cliff assets from Quixel Megascans and then just hand place them on the mountain, making sure that whenever I duplicate a cliff, I hit Alt-D instead of Shift-D. This creates an instance, saving precious poly count in memory. Okay, after a while of configuring the cliff's location, I have this awesome result. I think now is the moment to mention that the scene really didn't look good until we got the atmosphere in and we got the scattering on the midground and mountain setup. It's really important not to judge your scene too harshly until you actually have all the pieces in there. I think that was one of my biggest downfalls when I first started 3D. I would judge the scene too quickly before even having anything in there, and then I would quit before I even had the chance to make things look good. So give things time. Now I'm at a point where I'm mostly happy with the natural side of things. The mountains are great, the plants are great, the atmosphere is great, but of course we are missing the kingdom. Here's before and after adding the medieval style city on top of the mountain. Now, luckily for you and me, the process for developing the city is actually super fun and completely free. Let's get into it with Chapter 6, Kingdom. Now, when I first started creating the scene, I didn't quite know how to go about creating the kingdom. I actually experimented with a few failed techniques first. Like, for example, I tried 3D scanning this giant castle in Spain from Google Earth and then arranged it on top of the mountain. I mean, it could be worse, but it's just not it. Sometimes you can't find the answer to the problem without getting a few failures out of the way first, and you shouldn't be afraid of that. Eventually, I realized there's a giant database of highly detailed castle scans on Sketchfab, and most of them are completely free to use. So I just searched around for cool fortresses and medieval towns until I compiled this collection. Thank you to Global Digital Heritage 333 DDD and Nick for providing these great assets. Once set up in the scene, I spent a while exploring different arrangements of the town on top of the mountain, rotating, scaling, and adjusting materials. I like this big fortress towering above on the left side of the mountain, with a few other walls and towers going towards the various smaller houses snuggled beneath. On the other side of the mountain, I added this cool church. I like how on one side there's the fortress, and on the other side the place of worship. Kind of a cool juxtaposition between military and spiritual sides of a medieval city. I also added this cozy little fishing town beneath the mountain, sitting on the edge of the water. During the building arrangement process, it's important to consider the culture and utility and daily routine of the people in the city. That's the core of what makes this kingdom believable. And now, let's enjoy the final result. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed. I'm glad to have shared this process and hopefully jumpstart some of you into creating your own kingdoms. If you want to support what I do and help me to continue making tutorials, I would so greatly appreciate it if you checked out my Patreon. There are tons of cool tutorials and 3D assets on there every single week, and it goes a really long way in supporting me. All right, I will see you guys in the next video.